Hello, viewers. Welcome back to our In Conversation with Dr. Raja Amarnath episode. Thank you very much for your support and questions which you are posting us through WhatsApp and other communications. Of course, comment section is always available. You can post your queries, questions, anything related to COVID or anything related to health. This is not just about COVID. Even you can talk about your questions on your typical like ICU, emergency sort of issues, or any health issue your family members have on these days. So Dr. Raja will be very glad to support us. Dr. Raja Amarnath, sir, how are you? Thank you very much for joining again.
Fine, sir.
Thank you. Sir, let's get on to our show. I have a question posted by one of our viewers. The question goes like this. A lot of people have asthma, sneezing, and the breathing problems, difficulty in breathing. So what kind of prevention techniques would you like to suggest for these people?
See, the asthma, wheezing, there are two major reasons for this. Asthma is by definition, there is some inflammation going inside the airways, small, medium sized airways, that is what we call it as, in the lung. Asthma is not the problem of the lung per se, it is a problem in the airways through which the air passes. By definition, asthma is because of allergy. The person is allergic to something. It might be in the most common scenario, it is cold weather. That is why people, when they get exposed to AC or in the cold weather, they get sneezing, coughing, and then they land up in wheezing. They are all part and parcel of the symptomatology. There is other term called bronchitis. Asthma, you can say it is allergic nature of bronchitis, whereas the bronchitis is because of either smoking or because of pollution outside. It can be industrial pollution, it can be pollution because of the vehicles, motor vehicles, or it can be because of dust and pollution in certain industries. People working in, for example, wood cutting industries, that wood dust. Similarly, people working in heavy polluted environments where there are chemical fumes, chemical factories. So, in any way, either the lung or the airways are getting exposed constantly to obnoxious substances in the form of gases. So, they get damaged. When there is a damage, what will happen to us when we get a damage on our skin? So, it will repair itself with a scar tissue. It may not be the same tissue. So, when the damage is it is continuous, perpetual, it is again and again it is happening inside the airways. So, they go into some kind of remodeling, they try to repair. So, essentially the inner surface, inner diameter of the airway, they become narrower. That is what is called as bronchitis. So, why wheeze comes? When air passes, do you recollect Anand? In the childhood days, we used to whistle through the pen cap.
Correct, sir. I am able to remember, yes.
When you blow either through the bottle, opened bottle, or through the pen cap, when you blow air, it gives a whistle sound.
Correct.
That is exactly what happens inside the airways. When you want to make the air go out, through a narrow airways, so that gush of air causes some sound, that is wheeze. So, essentially the diameter of the airways is getting narrowed down. In asthma, because of the allergic substance, it becomes narrowed down. In bronchitis, because of the perpetual damage happening due to the obnoxious gases, whatever you are inhaling, because of that it happens. In both the conditions, there is some kind of deconditioning in the respiratory system. So, you can inhale, but if you want to exhale to release the air, there is some sort of obstruction, that is what is called wheeze. Now, with this background, answering your question, you said what kind of precautions people should take. The first and foremost is, whatever is the aggravating factor, you have to avoid that. And the second thing is, treatments are available. That is why we give inhalers to patients with these problems is because essentially the problem is inside the airways. There is no point in taking a tablet or a tonic or injection because that goes into the blood. By the time it reaches the airways, it takes a long time and you need to give higher dosage also. Whereas inhaler, it works on the spot instantly. So, they have to sit tight on their medications. So, what is the output? You have to keep your respiratory system in such a way that by taking medicines and by taking precautions and by avoiding the aggravating situations, you keep your lungs as if they are normal by means of medicines. Essentially, any medical treatment, what is the goal of medical treatment? There is a damage or a disorder in the system. By giving external medicines, you try to match it to as much as possible, match it to a healthy organ, isn't it? So, similarly, you have to keep your lung and the respiratory system and airways, everything as normal or as healthy as possible by means of medicines or the other precautions. That is when in current crisis times, even though you are taking medicines, because you are keeping your system healthy. So, in the worst case scenario, if we will be fit enough to battle.
Correct. Doctor, I also have additional sub question on this topic, that 3 of our friends in my professional fraternity spoke to me the last 1 week, 10 days time. One has a sneezing problem. Every day morning when he gets up, it takes for him about 1.5 hours to settle down until he sees sun and relax himself. It takes about 1.5 hours. So he is much worried now. There is no running nose, but he has got a lot of sneezing, and he is much worried whether he should go and take COVID test or whatever. In fact, with limited exposure, since I am interacting with you, I told him in one of the interviews which you spoke in News J, I think. From there, I also learned some input from you, and I told him that you don't have to rush to the hospital or doctor right now because they are handling much more serious problems. So, you do some pranayama or the breath regulation practices for a few days and then see whether it is really improving. So, connected to that, this question comes to you. So, people who have a regular running nose, a regular cold, regular cough, how are they supposed to handle these COVID days?
Your question gives me an insight into 3 different areas. Let us begin with this sneezing. You said somebody gets sneezing. What is the physiology behind sneezing? Why sneezing comes? If you look into the reason why sneezing comes is because it is a natural phenomenon. Whenever a dust particle or obnoxious gas or something goes inside the respiratory system, into the airways, it triggers a reaction in such a way that you use your entire lung respiratory power, lung force, total respiratory capacity to push it out. That is why sneezing, before sneezing you take a deep breath. Just recollect how do you sneeze. You take a deep breath and then through nose and mouth you tend to make a big blow of air out. Through that mechanism you tend to push out, throw out the particles whatever is embedded in the respiratory tract. That is the mechanism. So, people who get sneezing repeatedly, they need to identify to which they are getting it. Some people, when they sit under the fan, they get sneezing because they are sensitive to the dust that rises with the fan speed. Some people, some people when you do the morning times sweeping, when the dust rises they get sneezing. That is why people say morning I get sneezing. Some people when they go into cold weather, they get sneezing because cold weather is a irritant for them. So, sneezing is a protective phenomenon. First thing we need to understand. There is no medicine to control sneezing and it should not be controlled. And you have to check why sneezing is coming and try to avoid those factors. That is the story of sneezing. Most commonly, people with sneezing also will have running nose on and off. Both are the same. Running nose, why nose secretes more of watery secretions, that is called is running nose. No? Why is because it tends to dilute certain dust particles that are in the nose, or virus or a bacteria, whatever it is, it tends to throw it out. That is why in every viral infection, in common cold, what happens, first 3 days the person will have watering coming out of the nose, because it tends to dilute whatever is the superficially virus is there. It does not want that virus to get attached. This is a natural phenomenon of washing out the microorganisms, first level of defense. That is why running nose comes. Similarly, people who get phlegm, thick sputum, usually it comes in bacterial infections, because when they go inside the lung and they settle down and then start destroying the respiratory system, so the white blood cells come and fight. It is that microorganisms and the dead cells and the dead white blood cells, the mixture debris is what actually is the phlegm. That is when we cough and then try to bring out the phlegm and then spit it out, because you are actually clearing the debris from your system. Okay. Now, when you have these two problems, they are the symptoms or signs of a problem, they are not the problem per se. So, your treatment should be aimed at the root cause, not just blocking these things. This is a common problem. My patients, many times they call me, whenever they come, the first thing they say, doctor, I am unable to cough like this, do something, I should get rid of my cough. That is when I tell them, that this is good for you, you cannot get rid of this until and unless the system is cleared completely of all the debris and the infection is cleared. That is something to do with the inside part of the respiratory system. Your second part of the question deals with some sort of physical exercises or some breathing exercises, which probably you are asking me to see whether they can control these things. Am I correct?
Correct.
Okay. They are not related at all. Okay. All the breathing exercises that we do are to improve our strength of the respiratory system. Okay. Even I am very much fond of these traditional breathing exercises, our yogic system, what they teach, starting from pranayama, then kapalbhati. All these things are very good exercises, because they make you to go and use your entire respiratory system's power, so that when you put your system into test every single day, it is like you start your car and then raise the accelerator to see how its acceleration works at the peak. Actually, you are not actually moving the car, it is not running gear, it is in the neutral gear, but still you accelerate to the maximum, right. Similarly, for the bikes also we do, this is something like that. All these so called exercises, breathing exercises, are number one, they improve the fitness of the system, and then they actually test the system on a regular basis. There is a very important the invertendo in this. You see, in the current world, where most of the population is in sedentary lifestyle, this is not the same in the with our ancestors. Let us say 100 years ago, there were no cars, no bikes, no bicycles, they had to walk and they had to do all the household works, no washing machines, isn't it? So, even I used to wonder, when kings, royal life, what is royal life? Kings are riding the horse. Have you ever rode a horse when it was actually galloping? That is the most uncomfortable time for anybody. You cannot sit on it properly.
Yes.
If somebody does horse riding for 1 hour, it is equal to you are also running along with the horse almost.
Correct.
Because
Absolutely.
it is not it is a bumpy ride.
Correct.
It is in the remotest village, in the so called government's bus with a bumpy ride is 100 times more luxurious than the horse riding.
So you have now defined the richness in a different sphere. Good.
So my speculation is that even the so-called royal life in those days was involving a lot of physical activity.
Yes.
The difference is now, even so-called poverty does not involve a physical activity at all.
True.
So what is the invertendo here? The invertendo is you never use your complete respiratory system's capacity. Okay, let us assume that there is a disease entering into the lung and it starts damaging the lung slowly. You may feel mild cough and some little bit of difference, but you do not feel breathlessness. Why? Because you are using only 30 to 40% of your system every day. You know, you get up, you go in the car or the bike, then you take the lift, sit on a chair and work. Even so-called sales people or the other people who are traveling around, where is the physical activity for them? You are, after all, you are only riding the bike. So what happens? You do not put your system into test on a regular basis. So you will only know the damage when it comes to your threshold level. Let us say a person is using only 40% of his respiratory system's capacity. So until it touches 40% system, you will never know. I have seen in my experience many times people come with some sort of viral infection and bacterial infection, which is a common cold, but they land in the hospital in ICU with breathing difficulty. When you test them, then you will identify that there is a baseline underlying lung condition which has been there for years, which they ignored because the current lifestyle, seriousness in the life, you run around all the time, you do not test yourself every now and then. So that is how it comes. So coming back, what does these exercises, the greatest help that they do for us is that they put the system to test on a regular basis. So you, first thing is you will be able to identify the problem as soon as possible. Okay, that is number one. Number two, the system is able to tolerate, because you are every day you are putting it into the test. Like if you are doing Kapalbhati, tomorrow when you are breathless, you are able to tolerate it better. But that does not reduce the disease burden. You have to understand the difference. Just because somebody is a heavily masculine and six-pack personality, I know many of my patients who are actually regular gym goers and they are actually six-pack personalities, but they have wheezing and asthma. There is no relation between these two, because other thing is internal, your body beating is external. But having said that, if there is a problem, the person with the physical fitness is able to tolerate it to the better extent than the person with a debilitated system. That is the difference.
Okay. This now very beautifully explained. Thank you, Dr. Raja, for taking your time to share all these information. So I like to come back to you more and more, because a lot of questions people are asking us through WhatsApp and other medium of communication. This video is also being uploaded in our channels. So viewers, thank you very much for watching, and I'll write back to you with one more episode with Dr. Raja Amarnath with more questions. Please comment right below this video. Post your questions, whatever you want me to ask Dr. Raja Amarnath, I will ask on behalf of you. Thank you, Dr. Raja, and thank you every one of you who are watching this episode. Thank you so much. Take care.